Welcome. Today I will talk about my time in the German army. So when I was young, I was drafted for the army, and at that time you had the option of either going for a civil service, which means, for instance, helping elderly people, or you could go to the army, to the military service. And as a default, you would take the military service. So I was quite lucky in the sense that I could go to the sports group of the army, and this is a group which is designed for elite sportsmen to pursue their sports while being in the army. And since I was probably the best chess player of my calendar year, I was drafted to be in that group, and therefore for me it was not really a question of doing civil service versus army, because I knew that if I will join the army, I can play chess for 10 months instead of doing anything else, which was great for me as a young chess player. So the way it worked was you had 2 months of basic drill, and after that you would have 10 months in which you could focus on your chess. So in this video I will talk both about the base drill and about the chess part thereafter. Imagine a couple of very sporty people going there during real physical sport, and I was the only chess player in that group. So right off the bat, when I came there, the drill instructor said, okay, so this time in the sports group we have a chess player. So it will be quite easy to figure out who it is, let's do 20 push-ups. And well, at the time I was able to do 20 push-ups, but afterwards I was pretty exhausted and went up, and like one of these guys asked, okay, so this is like a joke, and then the guy forced him to do 100 push-ups, and he did 100, which was of course quite impressive to me. So that being said, for me it was kind of tough, because all of the other people there were like real sportsmen, and therefore I think the instructors also had their eyesight set a bit on me to be a potentially weak target, and there were quite a few unpleasant encounters with that. That being said, in hindsight it was also quite funny. So I will talk about a few things which were quite funny to me. So it was well known, of course, that I was kind of the weakling of the group. So when we went shooting, finally, this was the first time I did something which was, I guess, better than the average of the group. And so the instructor came and told me, "Zeal, wow, finally we found something you're good at." And then I was smiling, and then he said, "You know what this means?" And I said, "No, I have no clue." "It means you're the new MG1. And the MG1 is the person who carries the machine gun on the marches. So, of course, he was again playing games with me, and I thought this was a pretty funny one, to be honest, because I was good at machine gun shooting. So he told me, okay, so I have to carry the MG1 in the next march. This didn't last for long until I had to give it up to someone else to carry the machine gun for the march. So we were sitting there, and right after like 2 beers, the first of these sportsmen were already really completely gone and completely wasted. I think some of them had never drank beer before, and it was really interesting to see like how weak and susceptible they were to alcohol. So again, the guy, after some more beers, came to me and said, "Oh, Zeal, great, we have something else you're good at." And so this became kind of a running joke. There was the one time when I was called to take a phone call from a higher ranked officer, and so the instructor from my group actually called me and then really very formally passed on this higher ranked officer to me. So he said, "Funker Zeal, hereby I pass on this higher ranked officer who wants to talk to you." And I knew who the guy was because he was like an old chess colleague of mine, and so I thought, okay, I will just make fun of the situation, and I said, "Oh, hey Carl, how are you doing?" And so, like, he was sitting there, this drill instructor, with a couple of other instructors who were making fun of the guy at the time. And then once I ended the conversation, I passed him back the telephone, and then he was obviously a bit embarrassed and started yelling at me and told me, okay, so he will come through my room with white gloves and he will look for dirt in my room on the next Friday afternoon. So they always had their ways of retaliating, but I also had my ways of making fun of them. So it was a little bit of a back and forth throughout these 2 months. Well, one other story was the final march that we had, which was really tough. I mean, it started in the night, and I remember we were walking all over the place, and it was like more than 20 kilometers with this heavy baggage, and I don't know, it was really not nice. And at the very end, we had to go and go through some obstacle, some kind of an obstacle training, and I was completely exhausted. And so then one of the drill instructors, like pretending to be in Full Metal Jacket, kind of told me, "Okay, so what would motivate you to go harder? This is not your hardest. So maybe we should put a chess queen somewhere, right?" Despite all of this, I would also say that I learned a couple of things. I mean, like this orderly behavior. This is something which I definitely learned, like how to fold your laundry in a nicest possible way, and also like being member of a team where somebody else obviously has to say over what you have to do. So I think it definitely is a good character forming experience, although during the time I didn't really like it that much. One of the first tournaments which I played was the tournament in Copenhagen. So this was the Nato Chess Championship. And this was quite interesting because we were traveling with a team of people some of whom I had known before already. And of course I was the small like private, and all of them, they were higher ranked officers. But there was still a lot of camaraderie going on, and there was not really this thinking in terms of military ranks during the tournament. That being said, for some of the other nations this was the case. So for instance, I remember one person not sitting at the same table as the officers. And yeah, there was definitely a difference between the way the different countries handled that, and I was quite happy to be in the German team. So the tournament went pretty smoothly, and I think as a team we won, and I finished, I think, second after the Buchholz rating or something, but I was first ex aequo with the guy who won the tournament from Denmark. What was my daily routine? Well, my daily routine was usually getting up at a decently early time. So not 5 o'clock anymore as in the base drill, but like 7 or 8. And then I would start working at 9. I would usually go for a run of like 5 kilometers or something during the day. And for the rest of the day, I would really focus on my chess. So there was a time between 9 and 5 when I was supposed to be reachable at home. And I also really focused on thinking about chess and playing chess during that time. Then every month I would go and play usually one tournament, and so I would spend one week, let's say, in Budapest or in Gibraltar or alike, and this was, of course, a really nice distraction from just practicing chess that you can easily also implement it while playing. So the other thing I did was to visit the place where I was officially located in terms of the military once a month as well. And there the trainer that I had, Uwe Bönsch, so he was the chief of the German chess trainers. He would meet with me for an entire afternoon, and and we would discuss chess together, which was pretty helpful to me because he had some guidance on the things I should do. So for instance, for every month we would then say, okay, until next month, what do you want to train? And then he would say, okay, focus on openings. Let's say you work on the Spanish, on the Ruy Lopez. Then he would say, okay, let's consider middle games. What is your suggestion? And then I said, for instance, I want to focus on tactics, plus I want to study certain structures where you have bishops of opposite colors, let's say. Or he would come up with a suggestion himself what I should study based on things that he saw. And then we would go through endgames as well. So for instance, we started with rook endgames, pawn endgames, and then at some point I remember I went through queen endgames. So there we had this idea that in the queen endgames often the side who has the passed pawn, which is more advanced, has an advantage. And so I studied these kind of more complex queen endgames, but also these queen endgames where there's just one pawn left, so queen plus pawn versus queen. And I think this was really useful, and I still remember a lot of things from back then. When I started there, my rating was like 2315. So I was on 2350 before, but I dropped a couple of points and I went back to 2315. But I guess my actual strength was probably around 2350 at that time. So the progress I made until January was already enough to earn the international master title, and I would have 6 months left in the military. So in that case, I thought, okay, so the IM title is there, but I was really motivated because I saw that maybe I was already a bit stronger than 2400, and I somehow now had the goal of going for 2500. And it turned out that even this pretty much worked out on point. So being able to study for 1 entire year, I think, shifted my actual playing strength from 2350 to 2500. I never really considered going pro after the time at the army because I felt like, okay, I have 2500 right now, but to really consider it, I think I would have had to have 2700 at that point. So the reason was just that, I was raised in a pretty conservative way, so I thought like going for more of a state-employed job will lead to more security, more safety in my life compared to having a chess job where, for instance, when a crisis hits, or even when you get older and maybe you don't perform as well anymore, you might have more trouble really making a living that way. So I don't know, my ceiling might have been I guess 2600 maybe. So I think if I'd gone pro, maybe the next year I would have jumped to 2550, and then progressively it becomes harder and harder. So maybe in the middle run I would have been at 2600, but for me personally it was just not worth it. So thanks a lot for watching this episode on my time in the German army. I hope you liked it, and see you for the next one.
When you have stress, play chess. When you fall on your ass, play chess for a real deal, for Christian seal.